I had a client ask me that. She was like, I don't know how to like organize my day now that I'm an entrepreneur. Too much white space. We do nothing. So it is important to have, okay, these are the activities I'm going to do on a daily basis, or these are I'm going to do on a weekly basis. This is what's going to help me with getting clients. What's going to help me get clients? Oh, going and speaking, those kind of things. Now, I'm going to share something with you that I don't know if you're going to believe me or not, but I haven't cold called for speaking in 9 years. Okay.
Mhm.
Because I hang around other speakers and I create deep relationships with other speakers. And those deep, just a few relationships have saved me from cold calling for years. And I still speak 50 times a year ish, like it's ranged
Well,
from
I
like,
definitely believe you that you don't cold call because I don't even receive cold calls anymore
yeah, we don't,
unless
or
it's
cold emails or
automated.
whatever.
I can't imagine how anyone could do it because I mean,
There's
my
still people doing it. There's still
I
people
mean,
like
my phone,
emailing.
I don't think it's even possible for someone to cold call me because I've got a spam filter for calls. It just instantly goes to voicemail.
Well, I mean like
So,
cold email or like let's say Google searching. Like say you Google search down a
yeah.
rabbit hole, right? You put in I want to where can I go speak, right? And you just start Google searching in rabbit hole, rabbit hole, rabbit hole. You're there for 2 hours. You've got nothing. You maybe found an application that you read through for 20 minutes and filled it out
Mhm.
and then never heard back. That is not usually that's what I call a soul sucking activity as a person who loves to speak and gets excited about being transforming people's lives, that you'll give up real quick after a few of those, right? That's just not an ideal why we get into this business. So that's one of the reasons we created the International Speaker Network is like hang out with other people who are trying to do something similar as you and create relationships so that you can
Yeah.
build each other up. And I think it's a little bit more of a here you had said give you give you a different opinion. If we were to compare, it's a little bit more of a feminine approach. A lot of the examples you said are more masculine approaches. They're not wrong. There's not a wrong or right, but it's just a different way. And I work with a lot of really soul filling type, purpose driven women. I work with men too, but usually it's just a little bit more heart centered than like likes and clicks and this and that. And so it's a little bit of a different approach.
Hmm. Right. I mean, I would point out a lot of the role models I'm thinking of on who are huge YouTube stars are women. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly there's bias in the world. I'm not suggesting there's not sexual bias in the world, but there are a tremendous number of women who have millions, tens of millions, maybe
Absolutely.
not Mr. Beast, but tens of millions of followers
Absolutely.
and subscribers who then have big speaking businesses
Mhm.
around it as well. So it brings up a tough issue. We live in a world where there are no gatekeepers. Anyone can be a TV network. Anyone can start a podcast and be a radio network. Anyone can be an author these days. You don't have to spend 2 years banging on doors of
Right.
HarperCollins and major publishers. But because of that, because there's no gatekeepers, it's very hard for most people to figure out a strategy because you could spend 22 hours a day
Yeah.
following up on LinkedIn and polishing a new demo video and reaching out to all your prospects and starting a new newsletter. There's almost an infinite number of ways you can market yourself as a speaker, do things that arguably are productive, and 6 months later, maybe you've made $0. How do you help people really figure out a strategy when they don't necessarily have a strong base yet?
Yeah, again, it's sometimes you might have to do a little quote unquote cold calling in the beginning if you don't have a strong network. These days, I remember I don't know how many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, you'd say like, "Oh, most people know 300 people." Well, now with our social media accounts, we know way more than 300 or access way more than 300 people typically. And most adults are on some social media network. So, we have a network. I think what happens is that people don't know how to utilize their network. Some people are naturally gifted at seeing those opportunities and some people just really they're like, I don't know what do I do, just spam everybody or like email. No. So what we'll do is we'll figure out how do you work with what you have when you have it, and then you just build upon the strategy after that. So say you have zero speaking engagement like me, I started with ground zero. Okay, what's my first step? What's the thing that's going to help me the most? When I work with people in the first 30 days, we do the get your talk ready to rock session. In that session, they have their call to action, their learning points, their description of their talk, and the title of the talk. So they know what they're going to be doing. And I call that a product on the shelf, because now you can say really proudly and shout it from the rooftops, I'm a speaker and I speak on X, right? I speak on this thing. And that can help you all of a sudden get booked, even when you don't even have one slide created. Like, they don't need to know that. You can create the slides. I mean, be good if you had it all ready to go, but you don't need that to get booked. And then another speaking engagement can happen from that speaking engagement. So it's that domino effect. But how do you start to figure out where you're going to be speaking? That's unique as well. What's your history? What's your background? What's your personality? What kind of speaking avatar do you want to have? Like, I have a client who speaks English and Spanish, and he is very passionate about Hispanic business. So he was like, let's look at that angle. So he speaks to universities and organizations for business, but also for Hispanic business. And he's spoken internationally and all up and down the coast for Hispanic business owners and business associations, because that's something he's excited about. So that's one avenue that's an example of how you can get really specific on where you're looking.
Lisa, when I was at the Active in the National Speakers Association New York chapter, I mean, here we are in New York City, a lot of successful media personalities, authors. Arguably, there's more highly paid professional speakers in New York City than any place in the world. But they tended to be, if you're an anchor on CNN, if you're Anderson Cooper, you make a lot of money speaking.
Yeah.
But that's 1/100th of what you think about in a typical month, because you're so busy with other things. You got a speaker bureau to handle all that details for you. These were not the workaday speakers. What I found was, in an organization like the National Speakers Association, and there's pros too. So many people who came and said they were a professional speaker, once I talked to them, they don't actually give speeches. They are therapists or consultants or salespeople who want to be speaking. So everyone is trying to pick each other's brain, trying to get leads, and no one had actually done any speaking. So I'm wondering, how do you judge when you're meeting with someone and people in your speakers network? How do you, not in a snobby way, obviously, but how do you really figure out who has enough here to add value where they've done it versus just people in the aspirational mode? And there's nothing wrong with being aspirational, but if everyone is there in the aspirational mode, it's very hard for people to bring each other up.
I think of it as kids on the playground, like at recess, right? And you don't need to play with every kid on the playground, but you need to have a couple good friends. So why not put yourself in a situation where there's a bunch of people that you might potentially play with, and you just find your couple. I think a lot of times people think you need to know everyone and do all the things and and we were trained like that a long time ago, like give all your cards to everybody and get everyone's information and all that. And I think it's different now. I think utilizing your intuition again of say you're in a virtual meeting and you can see all the little boxes on the Zoom, right? Who do you feel like you would really want to connect with? Who's floating your boat? What are they saying that sounds like it would be really helpful for you? And like, for example, in the International Speaker Network, we talk a lot about your ideal audience. Who's your ideal audience? What's your topic? What's your speaking avatar? Are you speaking virtually? Are you speaking in person? Are you doing paid? Are you doing waiving your fee? Are you pay to play? Are you going for summits, podcasts?